Welcome back with your host, Kevin Freeman.
Yeah, and today we're going to help you go into the light. And I don't mean go into the light so you're going to end your life here. I'm talking about go into the light so you wake up and you see what's going on. We've already had the opportunity to speak with Mike Smith, who's the man behind these films, and then Laura Logan, who was a part of it. But now a special guest. I'm honored to be interviewing a friend from a long time, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn.
Interviewing
Welcome,
and just
Flynn.
talking again, you know?
Yeah. No, you know what? You're a hero. You stood up. I remember you at the early rallies. I was at CNP when you spoke, and you know, you were there. And then the deep state decided you can't be allowed to be the national security advisor, and you were in the office for how long?
Oh, I think 23 days, 24 days.
And then out the door, and you did nothing wrong. Sidney Powell is a mutual friend, and she represented you, and now that's all gone. That's all out of the way. But now you're standing up for America.
Sidney Powell, I still call her the guardian angel, America's guardian angel of justice. She's an extraordinary woman, and just amazing mind. And boy, has they taken her through the ringer, because they hated the fact that she beat them.
Oh, and she did. And she stood up on the election. We were talking with Laura a little bit about how do you know you have honest elections. If you can't question an election, I can guarantee you it's not honest. If you're not allowed to question it. and if they say it's science and you're not allowed to question that, it's not science. Science requires questioning.
Yeah. Yeah, our election system is completely corrupted, broken, probably hasn't worked. I think at least I'd say 4 or 5 presidential elections, and there's plenty of evidence of that going back, and certainly at lower level elections, representatives and at state level and some local level. I mean, it's just a broken system. If you think about how they manipulated it, in a big way at the presidential level, because they've been stealing elections in the United States of America off and on since the Tammany Hall days of the early 1900s. But they never really took a shot at the president, metaphorically in the elections. And this time they decided to do that because the big plan for the left, and this is when I say the left, it's not the Democrat Party anymore. They don't exist. I rarely use those two words together anymore. The bigger plan was when Barack Obama won in 2008. That's when they made the decision to never give up the seat again, never give up the presidency again. So the plan was 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton. And Kevin, you would not be here, and I would not be here talking like we're talking today, because we would be a completely socialist state. They actually wanted that back post the Clintons. So when the Clintons left, everybody, remind everybody a little bit of history of presidential elections. 2000 was the Bush-Gore election, and they try to steal it out of...
That came down to hanging chads.
Yeah, they try to steal it down in whatever it was, Broward County or whatever, down in Florida, southeast Florida. And that was real. I mean, so that was a real effort. And they learned, and they didn't, and everybody blames the Supreme Court. Supreme Court didn't make the decision on that election. The state made that decision, the Supreme Court, because everybody wonders about what judges are going to do. The Supreme Court, and any on the judiciary side, the judiciary in our country do not decide the outcome of elections. They never will, and that's not in our Constitution. States actually, and then of course some federal, but states are the ones that will decide on elections. And that's what the Supreme Court did in 2000, is they decided on a constitutional issue, and it went in Bush's way, went his way, so he becomes the president. So they lost. The Democrats lost because, you're looking at Hill at the Clintons, and it was, they had a very good presidency because of, the economy, right? So what they did though is they learned. Now I'm talking about this left that is looking at taking over the United States of America, and they decided that, when they finished up with Bush, of course, 9/11, all the stuff, we won't rehash all that. Now you come in and you think that Hillary Clinton is going to come right back into power. Oh, no, it's Barack Obama, a guy that's a one-term senator, not even that, and he comes out of nowhere, the whole mess behind him. Everybody knows the story behind Barack, and he wins. He beats a McCain, a war hero, all this stuff, and he beats Romney. Both McCain and Romney ran terrible elections.
But in 2008, back up just a little bit. In 2008, that's when the financial crisis hit. McCain was actually ahead in the polls on September 11th, 2008, which is when the financial terror attack took place against Lehman Brothers, against Bear Stearns. It already happened earlier in the year. But when the stock market went down, and that's why they tried to cancel me with my research, because I said there was foreign interference in our election. I remember that very clearly. Yeah. Foreign interference in our election, and the Obama
and money.
Team.
So foreign interference is money, as well as manipulation.
Right. And the Obama team said, we can never, ever let it be said that there's foreign interference in election. Therefore, Kevin, you have to sit down, shut up, take your research, and go away. Yeah. They said that. And I thought that's ironic in light of the fact that that's all they blamed for Trump's win.
Yeah. So 2008, 2012, and now you have the heir apparent. I mean, if you look back at the primaries of the Democrats leading into 2016, I mean, there was a decision made, and you have all the likely suspects, and that are running for the Democrat nominee, and all of a sudden they all sort of just stepped away and got out of the way of Hillary.
Right.
And that was about in the February, March timeframe of 2016, and that's when you kind of knew, okay, this is it. She's going to take on the con for Obama, which is he's moving our country towards a much, much stronger socialist. His fundamental change, right? We're moving towards a socialist nation now. And you could see that coming. If you really look back at it and you study it, that's definitely happened. So Hillary is the heir apparent. Looks like she's going to beat, whoever is the nominee. It ends up being Trump. And they had all their polls, all their surprises in October. But what they didn't do is they did not prep the battlefield, the election battlefield in 2016, in November of 2016, enough. They did prepare for 3 states, to steal 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And they just didn't move the algorithm. They didn't move the needle enough. And we saw that. They actually came back after the election and came to the Trump administration a couple of days after, not the administration, but the transition team, and they said, "Hey, we have a complaint. We want to do some checking in these states." And Trump says, "Be my guest," and come back, and they found like another couple 100,000 votes to the good for Trump. And they knew then. Again, they did it in 2000. They didn't do it enough in 2016, and that's when they made the decision that this is never going to happen again. And they had these other plans in place to destroy Trump. They actually had planned on destroying Trump to show anybody else like him that would ever get involved. They had those plans prior to 2016 or prior to the election. So when Hillary won, they were going to crush Trump. I mean, totally crush the Trump empire. But he won. So now what they had to do is they had to adjust their plans. And they made some very, very significant strategic decisions between the November 2016 election and then when they gave up power in January. And when they did that, and that's been played out a little bit here, but they did say, we're never going to allow this to happen again. Well, and so 2020, and then now here we are.
The surprise for Clinton was the servers found in the emails and all of that, where she had classified information on a home server in her bathroom and so forth. And that's highly questionable. I mean, you'd go to jail if you did something like that. Yeah. But the surprise for Trump, I without COVID, what would the plan have been? Or was COVID the plan? I mean, the way that was released, the way that it was talked about, every nation on earth adopting the same strategy, communist, capitalist, it didn't matter. Every nation shut down, locked down. What is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at that, they needed a crisis, right? They needed to create something. The whole idea about COVID and this planning for it actually goes back to like 2010, 2012 timeframe. And so it's not like, when all this happened, they made it appear like, oh my God, this is this new disease that suddenly popped up. This is something that they had sort of in their pocket.
Were you briefed on pandemics at DIA?
At DIA, I had a lot of. In fact, one of the sub elements of DIA is the Foreign Intelligence Medical Center. It's 25 really highly skilled doctors, bugologists, I guess, and it's up in Maryland where they're at. And I went and visited that, and got fully briefed on all that sort of stuff. So yeah. So they needed a crisis, and the right type of crisis while Trump was president was a disease. Because if you had a war, the war thing wasn't going to work. The tail wagging the dog, sort of what Clinton ended up being able to achieve. But it was really they needed this type of thing. So here comes COVID, right? And of course, Operation Warp Speed was a big lie. It was a fall. It was just a total deception. So COVID comes in, and that's when you begin to look at and say, well, from my perspective, I'm sitting there going, wait a second, something's not right here. And so they needed that. And what it did was it caused something that's been going on in places like states like Oregon. Oregon has been a mail-in ballot state since the late 90s. Most people don't know that. And as soon as Oregon changed to mail-in ballots, they've never come back. They've always been way, way left up in Oregon. So they needed that, create the mail-in ballots. The whole scheme to do the ballot harvesting, it just increased, and it allowed them to have that excuse. And once they had that excuse, then they went to basically to war, and they said, this is how we're going to win this election. We are going to stuff this election, and we're going to steal it. And they stole the election by basically taking control of the election process itself. It's not about machines. It's not about, it's about the whole, it's the encompassing of the entire thing.
And changing the laws. And, we were involved in a lot of that and watching it. And you couldn't really say anything about it because you're not allowed to question elections. Although we can question elections in Venezuela, we're not allowed to question elections here in the United States, which is ridiculous because Lyndon Johnson here in Texas stole his Senate election. All right, we're going to have to take another break. When we come back, we'll be back with General Flynn, and we're going to talk more about the Into the Light movie, intothelight.movie. It's amazing.
Most people, Mike, only care about what's 50 feet from their door.
Yeah, we're here with General Flynn. We're talking about Into the Light movie. You can find it at intothelight.movie. We have an amazing opportunity to learn how we've been manipulated from Hollywood and from the media. We spoke with Lara Logan, who was at 60 Minutes when her producer reached out to me at once to talk about some research I'd done. She was at 60 Minutes. She was, one of the best known, still the best journalist in America, but one of the best known journalists. And all of a sudden, she spoke truth and got outside the narrative. And so she got canceled. And of course, Mike Smith, who created the Into the Light and also Out of Shadows movies, which you can find at intothelight.movie. He's gotten canceled, kicked off everything. And we're just speaking with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who is the head of the DIA. And I actually was invited by him to come in and talk to the DIA. He's remained a friend for about a decade, and he's gotten canceled. I mean, they threatened to put him in jail and everything else. And he was just talking about election integrity or election fraud and what happened in 2020. General?
Yeah. So just to finish up that last point that we were talking about, so the idea was to never again allow Trump to stay in office. Just don't let him get in there. And so whatever we need to do, we're gonna take this election. And people will say, whoever, there'll be people on this that'll, they use the phrase election denier. I don't deny that we have elections. I deny that our elections are fair. We have a lot of elections. They're just not that fair. And some are, in some places, but I haven't seen it yet. But most have some type of level of manipulation or fraud. And it's a shame because that's the one thing that makes us all equal in this country. when you're talking about, the movie Into the Light, Out of Shadows, Mike Smith, I think for people that are out there, if you're looking for something, many people have seen, I think, over 100 million people have seen Out of Shadows, but you still need to see it. If you haven't seen it, or watch it again, or watch it again if you have, because it talks about the things that we are involved in now. I think 4 years ago, people looked at things, and I'm talking to, post 2020 election, and you kind of had the people like, oh, well, maybe there's a lot of, wet blankets here, they're just, sour grapes. But I think now people globally, certainly around the world, but definitely in the United States of America, now see things for what they are, which is this is a takeover of the United States of America. And I mean that very precisely. So if you look at a movie like Out of Shadows and you get a foundation of the kinds of things that Out of Shadows addresses, all these different programs that our own government was running to manipulate the audiences of the United States of America, the many American people around this country that trying to figure out what's happening and the shaping of the battlefield, so to speak. And then Mike Smith, great director, great producer, great actor, stuntman. I mean, just a really just super person. He then creates this movie Into the Light, and Into the Light really, to me, it really addresses for an audience. It's a wake-up call to say, this is how you've been manipulated. This is how you've been deceived. This is how the media, the Hollywood, the intelligence community in the United States of America is shaping our behavior. And if you understand how that is happening, then you can understand how to operate within it, how to act within it, how to behave within it. And for people that like, a guy like me, I see these things and I'm like, I know I know exactly what it is. I know exactly how they do it. I know what it is that they're trying to do, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to move our country in a direction where, and I'll just use this sort of analogy maybe with Donald Trump right now running for president of the United States, where he actually believes he's up against the Democrat Party. He's not up against the Democrat Party. He's got the Republican nominee and all that, but he's really not facing, it's not a political side of the aisle facing the other side of the aisle and another political ideology. In this case, Republicanism or the idea of being, the grand old party versus the Democrat Party, which is, bigger government versus smaller government, et cetera. Less taxes versus more taxes. This is Donald Trump facing an opponent, and that opponent is the United States intelligence community. And the United States intelligence community, both inside and outside, are the ones that are manipulating the outcome of what we are going to face over these next couple of months.
But wait a minute, weren't you an integral part of the United States intelligence community?
Yeah. I led one of the largest intel agencies in the world.
And you know these people. Yeah,
I know them very well. I know all of them. And those that I don't know, I know what their roles are, what their positions are. And it's like, why did I only spend 24 days as the national security advisor? Why did the president of the United States, Obama, sit in the Oval Office and scheme with the top security officials in the United States government, to include the current president of the United States, Biden, while he was vice president in the White House on the 5th of January? Why did they scheme to get rid of one guy and in order to get rid of a second guy? And that's, the one guy is Mike Flynn, the second guy is Donald Trump. So they actually schemed, and we know this.
And you have evidence of this.
Oh, total evidence. I mean, there's a ton of evidence, and it was presented in a court and discovered by a special counsel that was designated by the Attorney General, and they were embarrassed by it, and they dismissed my case because of it. So, as I sit here and I look at things, and I look at these movies that are, these documentaries, because Out of Shadows, Into the Light are films that they're ways to take a couple of hours of your life and sit there and watch and go, and you're going to say, this, I now know exactly what has been happening. I now can feel it. I mean, just the layman out there. I mean, I'm talking, as the former, a lot of things in my life, particularly in the intelligence business, but not only an assistant director of national intelligence at the national level, leading one of the largest intel agencies in the world, rising to the level of national security advisor. You don't get there, because you're a dummy. In my case, you get there because, you know what you're doing, and the person that you're doing it for trusts that you can do that. And so the level of manipulation that needed to happen in order to do that, if you watch the film Into the Light, you'll understand it. And
it wakes you up.
Oh,
It's the red pill from Matrix.
Yeah.
It's the opportunity to start evaluating things. I remember when I looked at movies in Hollywood, and I was able to see what worldview is behind this. Mm-hmm. And there were some, and you can tell the difference in the Marvel films. They had one worldview, and now they have a completely different. I defy anyone to watch the original Captain America, the First Avenger, and not see, godly Christian worldview in that. But then you look at the modern ones, and you say, what is this garbage? And Into the Light shows you how they're manipulating us through those means.
Yeah. I mean, for anybody that's listening to this that has little kids that's ever watched Buzz Lightyear, okay? Buzz Lightyear, I think it's the fourth film of Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear's like, he's like a gay guy. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it's the assault on children. It's the assault on our faith. It's the assault on your very astute expertise in economic warfare. I mean, it's the assault on all of these things that we always, grew up and believed and created in this country to be good things to make for a healthy society in order for us to have this very competition of ideas in a constitutional republic. And all of that is changing, and it's changing to another sort of the other side of the line. This other segmented ideology of and the big words are communism, Marxism, progressivism, globalism, Islamism, because Maoism, because of the alliance that has always existed, and the alliance, you can go back to these types of alliances back to World War I, World War II, even in the the world of Napoleon and fighting the British. I mean, there was alliances that these sort of funny bedfellows that would get together that would fight each other because of a piece of turf or a marriage or something like that. But as you came forward into history, and you start to see these other things pop up. The names, the isms that I just mentioned, those alliances are now reforming, and they're reforming against the United States of America. And when you look at what's happening in Europe, Europe is going through a complete collapse. Europe, Great Britain's, United Kingdom's elections that they just went through a couple months ago. I mean, 10 major cities now have Muslim mayors. 10 major cities, Muslim mayors. And, for anybody who's paying real close attention to the UK, you can see the riots that have been going on, on the south end of London and some other places. I mean, it's just unbelievable. That's going to break out. In probably 5 years, the United Kingdom, the dominant population there, certainly the dominant population that votes, is going to be Muslim, if it isn't already. This country, we're looking at about 10 years. But the thing that's pushing it is the idea of communism. I mean, communism has been infiltrated into the United States of America for a long, long time. So we have got to come to grips with this, folks, and people need to be prepared for what's going to happen next couple of months.
Well, and that's one of the reasons you want to wake up. If you want to learn more about Into the Light or Out of Shadows, you can learn more at intothelight.movie. And we've been talking with Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, who was the National Security Advisor under President Trump for 24 days. And we've been waking up. This is something we do at Pirate Money Radio. If you have any questions, email us at afr@piratemoneyradio.com. This is Kevin Freeman with Pirate Money Radio.